The warm pumpkin pie was still in my hands when my dad dropped the bomb. I'd spent hours making it the night before, using Mom's secret recipe with that touch of maple syrup she swore by. 3 hours of driving through thick fog just to get here, like I did every single year. It was supposed to be Thanksgiving. This was supposed to be home. The table looked perfect. Mom's fancy dishes sparkled under the dining room lights. The turkey sat golden and untouched. Steam rose from the stuffing bowl. Everything felt normal until Dad opened his mouth. "Return the $50,000, or don't bother showing your face here again." I thought I heard wrong. Maybe it was some sick joke. But nobody was laughing. My sister sat frozen at the table like she was at a wake. My brother stared at his plate. Even Mom wouldn't look at me. The pie suddenly felt like it weighed 100 pounds. "What are you talking about?" I managed to say. Dad's face went hard. "Don't play dumb with us." That's when my sister finally spoke up. Her eyes were puffy and red, mascara smeared like she'd been crying all day. But her voice was ice cold. "Mom's bank account. 50,000 gone. Right after you helped her with that online banking setup." My stomach dropped. Yes, I'd helped Mom learn how to use the banking app. She was nervous about going digital, worried about hackers and scams. So I sat with her one Sunday, walked her through everything step by step. She even wrote down all her passwords in a little notebook. That was a month ago. Now they were saying that was when I robbed her. "You seriously think I stole from Mom?" The words barely came out as a whisper. My brother finally looked up. We didn't want to believe it either. "But the bank says someone used the online account. Nobody else knew how to access it." I looked at Mom, hoping for some sign of doubt, some hint that she knew this was crazy. Nothing. She just pressed her napkin to her mouth like she might throw up. That's when it hit me. The pie, the drive, the tradition, none of it mattered anymore. I wasn't their daughter. I was a thief. I set the pie down gently and grabbed my coat. "You have 1 week, Dad said quietly. Then we're calling our lawyer." I didn't cry on the drive home. Didn't scream or pound the steering wheel. Just drove in silence while the whole town celebrated around me. Thanksgiving lights twinkled in windows. The smell of holiday dinners filled the air. Everyone else was happy except me. I checked into a cheap motel on the edge of town. The kind of place I'd driven past 1,000 times but never needed. The room smelled stale and forgotten. I sat on the scratchy bedspread, hands still shaking. Here I was, 34 years old, a forensic accountant who handled million-dollar fraud cases for a living. And my own family thought I was a criminal. The worst part? I wasn't completely shocked. There had been signs. The way my sister rolled her eyes when Mom bragged about my career. How Dad once asked when I was going to settle down and live a real life. Last Christmas, when I offered to help pay for house repairs, my brother mumbled something about me trying to buy their love. I thought they were just teasing. I thought we were still family. Lying there staring at the ceiling, I tried to remember every detail of helping Mom with her banking. Every click, every password, every security question. Had I missed something? Could someone else have seen that notebook? The notebook. It was always sitting in the unlocked kitchen drawer. My sister still lived at home sometimes. My brother had a spare key. I wasn't the only one who could have found those passwords. But they believed it anyway. Believed I'd wait for Mom to get sick just to steal her money. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister. "We didn't want it to come to this, but you made it impossible to trust you. No, happy Thanksgiving. No, are you okay? Just blame, like I was the one who'd broken something. I flipped the phone over and stared at the ceiling some more. At work, I spend my days catching embezzlers and tracking stolen money. I know what financial crimes look like. And right now, someone had set me up perfectly. If they wanted to treat me like a criminal, maybe it was time I started investigating like one. I woke up early the next morning without an alarm. Years of chasing corporate fraud had taught me something important: money doesn't just vanish. It gets moved. The trick is knowing where to look and who benefits. I grabbed some terrible coffee from the lobby and opened my laptop. My company had been working on a case involving elder fraud, older people whose savings accounts got emptied in careful, calculated withdrawals. The same bank kept showing up in our investigation. Greenwell Mutual. Mom's bank. I hadn't told my family about this case. It was confidential work. But I had access to the transaction records, and I knew exactly who to contact. I sent a quick message to our compliance officer with Mom's name and account details. Within an hour, I had everything I needed. Transaction logs, withdrawal amounts, even security footage. 3 separate withdrawals from Mom's account over 2 weeks. 20,000, then 15,000, then 15,000 again. Each one just under the reporting limit that would trigger extra scrutiny. But here was the interesting part: they weren't done online. They were done in person at the bank. That was the first crack in their story. They'd accused me of using online banking, said I was the only one with access. But if someone walked into the bank to make these withdrawals, it wasn't me. I clicked on the security footage. The video quality was grainy but clear enough. A young woman at the counter, blonde ponytail, gray hoodie, big sunglasses. She kept looking over her shoulder nervously. At first I thought maybe they'd hired someone to impersonate Mom. But then the woman pulled down her mask to talk to the teller. It was my sister. Even through the fuzzy video, I knew that face. I'd watched her grow up, helped her with homework, been there for every birthday and breakup. She was fidgeting with her fingers, tapping the counter. She handed over what looked like Mom's ID and signed some papers. I leaned back in my chair, the motel's fluorescent light buzzing overhead. They hadn't just stolen the money. They'd planned it. Waited until I helped Mom go digital, then used that timing to make me look guilty. The second video showed my brother. Same bank, different day. No disguise, completely calm. He joked with the teller like he owned the place. The third video was my sister again, same hoodie, different sunglasses. The nerve of it made me sick. But I still needed to figure out how they'd gotten Mom's account information. Then I remembered. 2 weeks before I helped Mom with the banking app, she'd had some medical tests. Nothing serious, just routine scans. My sister had volunteered to stay overnight with her at the hospital. Mom's purse was with her the whole time. Her checkbook, bank statements, driver's license, everything my sister would need. I dug deeper into the digital trail. The first login to Mom's account after I left town didn't come from Mom's phone. It came from a tablet using the house Wi-Fi. The same network my sister used for Netflix. The backup email for password resets. That was connected to my brother's phone number. They weren't just sloppy. They were arrogant. They thought no one would question it, especially if the successful daughter was the obvious suspect. I closed the laptop and made a phone call. Not to the police, not yet. I called my office and asked for printed copies of all the bank signatures. I'd need them for comparison. Then I pulled out my courtroom presentation folder. If they wanted a villain in the family, I'd show them what happened when the villain kept receipts. I didn't call ahead. Monday afternoon, I drove back to the house as the sun hit that perfect golden angle it always did in late fall. The kind of light that used to make everything feel like home. Not today. Everyone's car was in the driveway. I parked on the street and sat for a moment, engine cooling, hands resting on the folder full of evidence. Then I walked up those familiar porch steps and let myself in. The house smelled like soup and herbs. I could hear quiet conversation from the kitchen, the clink of dishes, laughter that didn't include me anymore. I found them all gathered around the kitchen island. My sister sat on the counter with a coffee mug, legs swinging like a teenager. My brother leaned against the fridge with his arms crossed. Mom stood at the sink drying dishes. Dad stirred something on the stove. They all looked up when I walked in. Everything went silent. I walked past them and placed my folder on the island where we used to make cookies together as kids. Then I opened it. "You believed I stole from Mom," I said quietly. "Let me show you what really happened." The whole room changed. Like the air before a thunderstorm. I pulled out the first photo, my sister at the bank counter, signing papers. October 10th. $20,000. Not online. Not me. Nobody moved. Not even my sister. The second photo showed my brother smiling at the same bank teller. October 15th. 15,000. My voice started shaking, but not from anger. From the weight of what I was seeing. These weren't strangers. These were the people who raised me. My sister gripped her mug tighter. She started to say something, then stopped. I laid out the bank slips with their signatures. "I compared these to your handwriting from that grocery list on the fridge." Finally, my sister spoke. Her voice was thin and defensive. "You went through our stuff." I looked at her sadly. "You went through Mom's." Mom reached for the documents with shaking hands, scanning the evidence I'd gathered. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "But the bank said it was done online." "That's what they assumed," I explained. "But the actual withdrawals were in person. The online access came later, from a tablet in this house. The recovery email was linked to his phone number." I nodded toward my brother. Silence fell over the kitchen like snow. Dad stopped stirring his soup. My sister looked away. My brother stared at the floor like he might find different answers down there. "You let me think my own daughter robbed me," Mom whispered to no one in particular. "You told me never to come home," I said even quieter. "And you never once asked if I actually did it." That was what hurt the most. Not the accusation. Not even the threats. The fact that they never asked for my side of the story. My sister finally met my eyes. Her face twisted with bitterness instead of guilt. "You always get everything. The career, the praise, the respect. I just wanted things to be fair for once." I studied her face. She looked older than she had last week. Or maybe I was finally seeing who she really was. "You didn't make anything fair," I said. "You destroyed it." My brother cleared his throat. His voice was flat and cold. "She'll be fine. Rachel makes more money than all of us put together." It wasn't personal. I took a slow breath, fighting the chill running down my spine. It's always personal when it's family. I watched Mom sink into a chair at the table, my folder still open in front of her. Her hands rested in her lap like she didn't know what to do with them. Dad finally spoke. "What are you going to do now?" For the first time in days, I didn't feel like the child in the room. I'm not pressing charges. But I've sent everything to the family lawyer. You can decide what to do with it. He nodded once, looking tired and older than I remembered. I zipped the folder shut with the same careful movements I used in boardrooms and courthouses. This time it felt final. You told me not to come back unless I returned the money, I said. I didn't take the money. But I brought the truth. I waited just long enough for those words to sink in. Then I turned to leave. Rachel, Mom's voice broke behind me. I paused at the doorway. Thanksgiving's over. You all made sure of that. I left without another word. Didn't take the folder. Didn't take the pie. Just my keys and whatever piece of me still hoped they might choose me. I didn't drive home right away. I sat in my car outside the house, watching the kitchen window from the curb. No one came after me. The light stayed on, but my sister's laughter was gone. My brother didn't open the door to say anything. No one ran down the driveway to apologize. That told me everything I needed to know. Back in Boston, the city felt different. Sharper, quieter. I went back to work like nothing had happened, but I wasn't the same person. I stopped calling on Sundays. Didn't check the family group chat. Let voicemails pile up for days before listening to them. One was from Mom, "We were wrong, Rachel. I know that now. I just didn't want to believe it could be them. I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive us. The house feels so empty now." She hung up before the minute was over. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived. Real paper, real envelope. Inside was an old photo of me, my sister, and brother as kids on Halloween. We were maybe 6, 8, and 10 years old, wearing homemade costumes on the back porch. I was dressed as a scarecrow. My sister had aluminum foil wings. My brother was covered in red paint. On the back, someone had written, "We didn't realize how much we'd miss you until you were gone." No signature. My brother never reached out. Neither did my sister. But according to a cousin who still lived nearby, they both moved out of Mom's house. Mom stopped talking to them, said she needed space to think. I didn't ask what that meant. I didn't offer to come back either. Instead, I built something new. I started teaching weekend classes at the community college about financial protection for seniors. It wasn't glamorous, but it felt like something I could control. After one class, an elderly woman approached me and said, "I wish I had a daughter like you." I smiled politely. Didn't tell her what I was thinking, so did mine. Once. December came and went without a tree, without phone calls, without the annual ornament exchange I used to organize. There's a special kind of grief nobody prepares you for, the kind that comes not from death, but from realizing the people you love chose someone else's version of you over the real thing. And once they made that choice, there was no taking it back. I still keep that folder of evidence. Not in my office or on my desk, just in a drawer near my bookshelf, buried under old tax returns and mortgage papers. I haven't opened it since that night in the kitchen. I don't need to. The facts haven't changed, and neither have they.